It's Wednesday, the 29th of April, 2020, day 48 of the new normal at Santa Monica College.
This is the Pandemic Podcast, your twice-a-week news and culture guide to surviving and thriving in the age of coronavirus. I'm Glenn Zuckman.
And I'm Jackie Sedley. Today on the podcast, from Tokyo, former Santa Monica College Corsair Editor-in-Chief Dakota Castets-Didier, and from Florida, former Corsair Managing Editor Yasser Marte. Dakota and Yasser, welcome to the Pandemic Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Excited to be here.
Dakota, to start with you, when did you arrive in Tokyo? What was it like? And then when did the pandemic arrive and how are things now in Tokyo?
Right. So I moved out to Tokyo in mid-December, before the new year, before 2020 came and decided to mess with all of us. And I arrived and things were still relatively normal. We hadn't heard anything about the coronavirus up until that point. And so we just kind of settled in. I moved in with my girlfriend. We went ahead and found ourselves an apartment in a nice part of Tokyo that we liked. And I went out, found a job, and went about life pretty normally. And then in about mid-January, my girlfriend, who is Chinese, started to hear rumblings from her family in mainland China about this virus that was spreading and the possible dangers that it would present us, especially living in a place like Japan, where a lot of Chinese immigrants come and work, especially in Tokyo, and kind of go back and forth. And this was all starting to appear around the time of Chinese New Year, which is a typical period of travel back and forth to China and then back to Japan for Chinese individuals who are living in Japan. So we immediately started to take some measures on our own to kind of protect ourselves. We started wearing masks, which is very normal standard behavior here in Japan when there's a sickness or during flu season. Even it's very common to take a train here and to see people just wearing masks in the winter season. But we immediately started to take some precautionary measures, started stocking up on food, and kind of imposed a soft quarantine on ourselves so that we didn't go out if we didn't need to. Of course, as time went on, things became clearer and the dangers of the coronavirus became so pressing that we decided to permanently quarantine ourselves. And so we have actually been working from home and staying at home pretty much all the time since early February. So
5-6 weeks before us here in Southern California.
Yeah. So we took a preemptive measure just for our personal safeties. It definitely wasn't the norm in Tokyo at the time, but we wanted to be conscious of the risks. And so, as a result, we've been inside since mid-February. So now what is it? It's almost 2.5 months. Am I doing my math right? Yeah.
Yeah.
That we've been stuck inside. And it's definitely been an adventure, and it's been interesting to observe how the Japanese government has handled this whole situation and the differences between it and the different nations in the world, and for us to kind of experience life being closed in here as opposed to life closed in the United States.
What's going on in Tokyo generally now?
So it was all kind of interesting around the Olympics because, as you may know, the Olympics were supposed to be here in the summer for 2020, Tokyo Olympics, and it was a huge source of sort of national pride and economic betting in terms of bringing in a bunch of tourism and bringing in a bunch of revenue into an economy that's kind of living on a knife's edge as it stands already. And so immediately when the coronavirus really started to spread around, more of Asia outside of just China, there were a lot of early signs out of, for instance, South Korea that things were going to get really bad really fast. Japan kind of took a slower approach. They didn't test a lot of people. They didn't necessarily raise an alarm. They were hesitant to kind of declare a state of emergency. And so what all that kind of caused was a lot of confusion as to whether or not this was an actual risk or whether or not people needed to take it seriously, especially because the government was signaling for a long time that they wanted to do whatever they could to preserve the Olympics in the summer. So that lasted for several weeks after things started to kind of get bad. And eventually they announced that the Olympics wouldn't be going forward and that they would postpone it for a year. And that kind of caused a little bit of a mass panic in Tokyo. People started going out and clearing out shops. And so, toilet paper, the essentials, a bunch of non-perishable food started to disappear all over the place as people realized that this was a serious risk to their health. And since that point, Japan's government has seemed to take the virus a bit more seriously. Testing numbers went up. A state of emergency was declared just a couple weeks ago. All of this to say there was a bit of a delayed reaction. While the rest of the world was already taking major preemptive measures, the Japanese government kind of was slow to react for what a lot of journalists out here especially are speculating is in a bid to kind of preserve the Olympics. And also just in general, as I hinted to earlier, the Japanese economy kind of exists on a knife's edge at this point. And so they were really scared that, any kind of quarantine order or any kind of emergency order would almost irreparably damage the economy. And so that hesitancy sort of still exists in daily life. I go outside and I still see people everywhere. We just had, it's about to be Golden Week, which is a major holiday in Japan here. It's like a week long of holidays, so people have it off of work. And we're also in the middle of cherry blossom season, which they call the Sakura season, which is a very common time to see people going out and taking picnics with their families and just kind of interacting with, their local environments. And I personally haven't observed a decline in the amount of people that I see out and about, even though we are living under a state of emergency as of this moment. The only noticeable difference really is that my girlfriend and I's works have allowed us to work from home, and more people are wearing masks. But just last week, the Japan Times, which is an English language newspaper subsidiary of the New York Times, released a statistic from a study that they did that even though there is a stay-at-home order, somewhere around 60 to 75% of employees are still daily commuting to the office, still taking the trains, still in close proximity to each other.
Seems like Tokyo has been much less shut down than Los Angeles at this point.
Yeah, I would argue that Tokyo really, with the exception of some smaller shops, is really not that shut down at all, to be honest. Some people are taking it seriously, others are just going about their lives. From my observation, there is no real sense of a lockdown.
Very different from our scope out here in LA. Yasser, I want to say you look much more well-kept than most of the people I've seen in quarantine. Are you fully locked down out there in Florida? What's your situation like?
Yeah, we're fully locked down. We're locked down here in Florida. I just have a mentality of just try to put your mind somewhere else. Even if that means if you put on a nice shirt or something, just do that. But yeah, we're fully locked down here. It's funny because I started right before the quarantine, probably like 2 or 3 weeks. I was starting this photo project that I was working on, which made me have to travel to some small parts of Florida. And then once they started saying everyone needs to stay home, first week I really wasn't taking it that serious. I was like, I'm just gonna drive out to the Everglades and to these small towns and just continue taking photographs. But then when they started announcing that, hey, by the way, the basketball games are going away, everything's going away, I was like, oh, I have no choice. Like I guess we had to stay home. I live with my family, so it's like a bunch of us here. I love them, and then at times I want to murder them.
How many of you are in the house?
My brother, my sister, my mother, and my cousin who's staying with us because she's studying nursing. And that came in real clutch because she just the first couple of days, she just went in and just got like all the vitamins, emergencies, Gatorades, everything. And then we have like this one section in our living room where everyone just goes every day and they take their multivitamin pill and just, just trying to stay healthy. We have a treadmill, so I use that to try to stay fit, and just try to exercise, and I'm still trying to eat as healthy as possible, even though it's really difficult. On May 1st, they're opening up parks here, so people are able to go to their parks and just hang out for the day, I guess. I heard they opened up beaches in Los Angeles. Is that true or not? Or like some parts?
I think the beaches that are closed remain closed, like Santa Monica, but I believe Orange County beaches have not closed ever, and they've remained open.
I know
Okay.
Ventura beaches are also slowly becoming more open, which is leading LA people to plan to flock there. So I don't know how long they'll stay open for, honestly. It's
Yeah.
kind of repetitive.
I think this heat wave weekend, there were a lot of people on the open beaches, and I think Governor Newsom was kind of upset and was thinking about, how to address that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dakota, are you feeling oppressed or limited? Are you bored? Are you busy? Have you found any freedom in this new reality?
Well, it's funny. Being locked in quarantine like this definitely encourages the development of hobbies and habits. Besides working and studying the Japanese language, I have cooked more actively than I have in years, and I'm finding a tremendous amount of joy in that. I've been learning how to cook different Chinese recipes that are, my girlfriend's favorites back from China, and so that's been a lot of fun. I took up gardening as a method to prevent boredom, and I'm enjoying that as well. In terms of a feeling of oppression, not necessarily. Especially just because of the way that the Japanese government has handled this whole situation. If I want to go outside, I can go outside. I do have access to pretty much all of the normal daily life of living in Japan. I choose not to use it. I do have to go to the market every once in a while, and I often take walks around 10 p.m. at night. I have a nice little park right next to my house that has a river running by it, and I just walk the river at 10 p.m. and there's nobody else around, and I put in a podcast or listen to some music. But I'm just trying to stay sane in those ways. Just trying to keep my days busy. Before all of this happened, Yasser and I had actually, as well as Andrew Narvaez, who was our photo editor when we were all at the Corsair together, we're going to shoot a documentary here in the summer. And unfortunately, because of COVID, the documentary kind of had to be postponed just because traveling right now is just not safe. And so instead, we kind of regrouped, and we decided to start a new project together, and we're calling it Experientia magazine, And so we've been devoting a decent amount of time towards writing and preparing that magazine, which is going to be releasing here in a few days. So between that, work, language study, and my little hobbies here and there, I'm staying sane. There's obviously some boredom that comes into being stuck inside, but overall, I would say things aren't so bad, and I'm definitely finding the time to get in touch with my writing, to get in touch with my cooking, and the other things that I love. So, in a sense, it's almost been a bit of a positive.
That is a comment I've been hearing from people that are particularly more creative or open-minded. Yasser, I'm curious because I know you are a creative type. Has this kind of propelled you more into it? Has it hindered you a little? Anything in between?
Yeah, actually, it has propelled me into it. When we were transitioning from classes to online, it was just a nightmare, especially for journalism. I just said this summer, nothing to do with school.
Where are you studying?
At Florida International University, FIU.
Got it.
And I just vowed not to do anything. But then I realized, maybe this is a great opportunity for me to start doing something I want to do. So I signed up for drawing classes for the summer.
Oh, wow.
And so I get to do something creative, just get involved in something I want to learn. So I'm trying to keep myself busy as much as possible. I mean, there's been I have friends that would just say coronavirus is the time to learn something. And it is a good opportunity, pick up a language or do anything that you wanted to do at the moment. But I could see how someone could easily just fall out of that because it's just boredom, absolute boredom.
It's a horrific thing that's killed a lot of people already and will probably kill many more. But
Right.
interestingly, this is episode number 11 of the Pandemic Podcast. And in the first 10, many of the people we've talked to have made comments like that it's been a time to rethink their career or to kind of dive into, whatever they do, deeper into songwriting or whatever it might be. So yeah, I think learning something new or reevaluating has been popular for a lot of people.
Meditating a lot too, just taking the time to really like reflect on what you want to achieve and what you want to do. Maybe you're doing something and just realize like, what was I doing? Or time for a change. And I could see that happening a lot. I felt that within me as well recently, because the journalism program at FIU doesn't really have anything to do with photography. I'm actually the only photographer in the journalism program.
Wow.
And I just realized, like, what am I doing here? After months of reflecting, and then the coronavirus really pushed me, I told them that I just want to switch the major to the minor and then move to photography, and that's it. Like,
with that in mind, obviously we don't really know when this is going to cease. So for both of you, I just kind of wanted to quickly ask, what are your thoughts on your future in both of your areas? Are you kind of future tripping and scared about what it holds? Are you able to stay in the moment with your projects? How are you feeling about that?
I'm actually excited for the future. To kind of build off of what Yasser and you guys were just saying, it's an interesting moment because we're realizing that a lot of us don't have this sort of opportunity throughout our adult lives to kind of put everything on pause and analyze it, from a bird's eye view, if you will, and kind of view the direction of our life and view whether or not we're content with it. And so in that sense, I choose to kind of view it as an opportunity, even though it's, all framed around this sort of horrible virus that's killing people and it's terrible. But, in that sense, I really, try to stay optimistic in terms of our futures, and use this opportunity to kind of plot out the next steps. So for me, I'm very excited about what the future holds. Working with Yasser and Andrew again has been such a blessing for me because we're unified in purpose, and it's given us this chance to really kind of come together and lay out a plan for a project that I think we all hold really dear. And it's allowed us to tap back into the sort of magical feeling as a team that we had when we were at the Corsair in spring 2019, and build on that, which is an absolute privilege. And so, hopefully this moment of being stuck inside and this moment of sort of uncertainty will actually give us an opportunity to build a plan and build a future for ourselves that kind of reflects what we want to be doing, in our heart of hearts, if you will. And so for that, I'm tremendously excited. But on that note, I also, wonder about when I'll see my family again. I wonder, my grandmother's getting really old. I don't want to state anything, but I don't know if I'll come home, in the next year. I don't know if I'll come home in the next 2 years, right? So if there is any uncertainty and worry, it's more so about my parents, my grandmother, their health. Being so far away from them is difficult, but we love each other and we stay in contact. So overall, I'd say I'm trying to stay really positive about the future.
Yasser?
I think working on this magazine now with Andrew and Dakota has given us like a really sweet sort of escape, but then it made us realize like this is something that should happen and we're taking it very serious. And
this magazine drops in a few days?
Yes.
And where will we find it?
On EXPERIENTIAmagazine.com.
Okay.
It launches May 1st. Our Instagram is Experientia Magazine. Our Twitter is Experientia Mag.
EXPERENTIA?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Did I just say yes to something? I didn't. Yeah.
You're good. It was right.
All right, good.
Dakota Castets-Didier and Yasser Marte, thanks for visiting the Pandemic Podcast.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for having us, and it was nice seeing you guys again.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Be safe, be well, and continue to express your humanity.
And check in every Wednesday and Friday for new episodes of the Pandemic Podcast.